Hello and welcome back to PAO Fans International Podcast. This is the American crew. Today I'm here with Alki, who has been absent recently, but we finally got him back. Alki, how are you doing?
Good, man. Good. Glad to be back. Just, life kind of gets in the way, but I've been keeping up on the sidelines. Just glad to be back and out of a chaotic schedule now to talk with you guys.
Yeah, definitely happy to have you back. Alex is currently not able to make it with us, so it's me and Alki today. Happy to have Alki back, and we're gonna get into our usual schedule, talking about the football as well as the basketball club. First and foremost, we just like to extend our condolences to George Baldock's wife, his child, and his family. Unfortunately, since the last time we had our last episode, we heard the unfortunate news of his passing. George will definitely be in our minds each and every day, each and every match day. I think he's part of the Panathinaikos family forever. So we just wanted to extend that comment towards his family. So, um, Alki, we kind of it's been a couple of weeks, so we had that international break. And the chit chat was the anticipation for the OFI versus Panathinaikos matchup. We know how tough OFI can be. And over the weekend, we played them in Crete. We were able to get a result against them. It was a 1-0 win, which, for us going to Crete and winning there, as we've talked about, it's a bit of a challenge. It was our first win in a couple of years there. And we saw the boys pull through with a 1-0 win. I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on the game, how things kind of went out. Does the score tell the whole picture?
No, I mean, the score line may look, I guess, somewhat flattering. It's 1-0. So for those that didn't catch it or watch, even catching highlights doesn't really paint the big picture about how it went. 1-0. I think it was a really early goal. I don't want to misquote. I want to say it was within the first 10 minutes, maybe. By Dete. Good goal, great hit. Just yeah, minute six. Just checked it. So to go 1-0 up 6 minutes and then for the next 85, 86 plus, however long stoppage time was, I can't remember. Is just a little, I don't know, deflating, I guess, in a sense, just given the type of system Alonso wants to play, the attacking power, even though we don't have Fortis, like we've got Pelistri's been so-so, but even with Tete, Jurisic, I mean, Yeremeyev has a great goal to minute ratio for the most part. We've got midfielders. I think everyone's just been underperforming, but I think that's more due to, as we've been harping on, the coach and the system. So I'm happy for the result because, like you said, it's been a couple years. I think they misquoted it. It's been since 2015, but we did go back and check, and we won back in 22. But really, to look at it overall in the last decade, to have only two wins in Crete says a lot about this result. But that's just kind of in a vacuum, as they say. Overall, just looking at the game and what we needed, like this was bare minimum. You mentioned it, Alfie and Kriti, they've been kind of up and down the last few seasons. They've been pretty good momentum since last season. But I think just given the circumstance of where we're at, 1-0, I don't know. I'm not satisfied with it. I'm satisfied in the sense of it seems more of like a sigh of relief than to be happy, honestly.
Yeah, I think deflating is a good way to put it, Alki. Because I mean, I'm just looking at the stats. I mean, we got a goal within the first 6 minutes. Great strike by Tete, low driven shot. I mean, we had 8 shots the whole game, 2 on target. Ofi had 17 with
Yeah.
5 on target. We had 61% possession and more passing. We had better pass accuracy, but it just kind of shows. I mean,
We did nothing with the ball.
we have no creativity. I mean, it's something that we've been harping on about since the season started, where I mean, you tell me that we have that much possession with 2 shots on target, less than our opponent. I mean, okay, yeah, you can argue it's OFI at home. Okay, they're gonna have some momentum going, but I mean, to me, that's inexcusable when you have that much possession compared to your opponent. They saw less than half of the ball. I mean, that's terrible. Less than 40% of the ball. And I mean, yeah, it just kind of to me just shows lack of continuity in terms of like how Alonso wants the system to go, I think. Um, you know, I think personally, we need to switch things up a little bit. We've got personnel, we've got the players, but I don't know if the system we have right now is tailored toward them because it's not really the statistics aren't really showing that. So I don't know. Maybe it would be good to see Alonso switch it up. I mean, we saw him a couple of weeks ago. I think he switched it against Baldock when he went. I think it was with 4-4-2 or something like that, and switched the gameplay up a little bit. Maybe when you're playing these types of teams like OFI, maybe I know it's tough to play against them. I mean, again, credit to the guy. I mean, credit to Alonso. He's gotten results in against Lens. He's gotten results against, I believe it was Olympiacos, where we got a draw at least, and then we got the win here against OFI, who made I think Olympiacos drop points a couple of weeks ago. So, credit to him there. But I just think again, the stats don't show everything. The gameplay kind of did. We saw Dragowski almost cost us. I don't know if you saw that, like blunder.
Yeah.
He let the ball go and it almost went in, and it was just terrible.
But he's afforded that grace in a sense. Should that happen, the thing is, I can't really give Alonso too much credit. And I've been a big defender of him, just kind of having his back just because it's a new season, late start, late sign, the typical PAO stuff.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, to answer to your point of switching things up, I agree in a sense that something needs to change, but I don't think it's with Alonso. And I say that in a sense of I don't see him making too many changes, switch up just because his job is on the line at this point. So he's going to play it safe, play what he knows is going to work or what he thinks is going to work, and that's it. At the end of the day, the product that they're putting out there is just and the play is uninspiring. His system doesn't fit the personnel we've got. He's got guys playing out of position or they look out of position. Um, et cetera, et cetera. We can make a long list. At the end of the day, I think even the goal that they scored was kind of just like him being the type of player he is, just wanting to take a shot. And it wasn't even like real good build up. It wasn't like a organized build up play that led to like a good goal. Like the goal itself was good, but it was more, shot it, I think, close to outside the box,
yeah.
towards the edge of it. Great pass by Jurisic, but I think Tete was still got it in between two guys. Like the goal itself was great. I just don't think it had anything to do with it wasn't an end result of an Alonso system style goal.
Yeah.
And that came in the 6th minute to go 85 plus minutes after that. Like you said, having the ball, we're talking 61, 39, 60, 40, whatever you want to call it, and letting Alfie have double the amount of shots on goal or not on target, but just double the amount of shots when they don't have the ball, I think just says a lot more that
Yeah.
there's just, broken record player. I mean, it's just not working out. But that brings up the question I'd ask you is, do you make a change with Alonso now at this rate?
In terms of like making a coaching switch or like tactically coaching switch. Yeah. So that's a good point, Alki. Like I was kind of thinking about it because I've been seeing it going around on Twitter. I had originally brought it up with Alex like a couple of podcasts ago when we were on. And I was saying, like, give the guy until November. We're almost in November. We're a couple weeks out. And I mean, the unfortunate thing really is like we're not seeing improvement in terms of our play style. We're getting results some ways here and there, like this OFI result. But again, statistically, it's not looking good. When you're watching the game, it's really not looking good. You mentioned that they're kind of like, he scored that goal and it was out of nothing, and that's kind of been a common theme. Like Jury bailed us out a couple weeks ago. That bailed us out here. We've had a couple of bailouts, and I think it's because we have so much talent on the roster. to where I'm,
Exactly.
that's where it's starting for me to think, maybe we do need to look elsewhere, but that's where I'm kind of caught in the middle. Maybe you feel the same way. I know other Panathinaikos fans feel the same way, but it's kind of like we get rid of Alonso now. It's like, who do we bring in? Is there anybody that's going to be better, that's going to move the needle?
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. And the funny thing is we're looking at two very stark contrasts or polar opposites in the sense of we saw, Jovanovic way overachieve, basically him and Tarim to an extent, kind of do a lot more with less. Whereas now Alonso is doing less with a lot more. Like there's no reason, honestly, that these type of results should be happening with the type of signings we've had, um, and just the lack of awareness of just what you're putting out on the field as a product. Like the player choices he's made for some games and some positions. When the subs come in, understand that your play style just doesn't fit most of the team. We can't play out the back. He wants to play as fast pace, but it's like you really only have Tete and sometimes Pelistri to afford that. Forti's injured again. Bakasetas is not involved when he's like probably one of our most important players for the Ethniki. We saw how, important he was, when we brought him over last season, end of the season. The list goes on. So, I'm not in favor with Alonso, and it's just it boggles my mind just how obvious the change is that's needed, whether it's him leaving or just him making the actual changes. Unfortunately, because of his calls he's made, his job is on the line, so he's going to be playing it safe. But like you said, I just don't know where you go at this point to in the market to bring somebody else in. I mean, luckily this result, along with what else happened in the league, is really giving him a longer leash. Olympiacos have dropped points. Ike, PAOK, we're still, I think, within what, 6 points off the
Yeah,
top or within the top two. Um, yeah, we're at 12 and Aris, surprisingly enough, is at the top with PAOK with 17 points. Um, and that's only thankfully because, like I said, Olympiacos and Ike and all them have dropped points. Aris unfortunately went to the top. I don't see them sustaining it, but that's a different story. The point is, with that result, and we're now kind of still within the top of the table, whereas before it's like, oh, everyone's doom and gloom. The season's gone. Um, we all know the Greek league, it's always gets flipped on its head, you know, come closer middle of the season, come playoff time. Um, so I'm not that drastic, but at the end of the day, it's kind of like one of those things. Do you really want to make a change when it's still within reach? Then again, we go back and look, Jovanovic was how close, and he
yeah,
still got the sack. So like it just nothing this club does makes any sense. So if we make a change, it wouldn't make sense, but it would also go with a pattern. And I mean, I can see why so many people would want to change, including myself. It's just Alonso's not doing anything to really inspire the roster and build up we've tried building up the last few years.
yeah. He's not inspiring really any confidence, and it's apparent on the like statistically, like we saw, but visually as well. You're watching the game, and the team just looks so disorganized. Like you brought up Bakasetas, who I was going to bring up as well. Where on the Ethniki, I mean, we saw during the break. I mean, he was back in form again. He was the Bakasetas that we saw last season. So it's clearly there's a disconnect, and to me, it's in the midfield. Like we brought the Moroccan player. I can never say, is it a
Unahe.
Unahe? There we go. I can never say his name right. I was gonna say Otani, but we brought him in, but I thought maybe that was gonna fix some of the issues like me and Alex had talked about before we signed him. And it's just apparent it's like there's a black hole in the midfield. And like when Ioannidis is playing, for example, it seems like the plan is just hoof the ball up to Ioannidis and just
Or
hope.
he just has to drop so far back that almost looks like a midfielder.
Yeah.
You know, Bakasetas is so non-existent. It doesn't make sense with the type of players we have that the midfield is so non-existent.
Yeah.
And we've been saying it for weeks and weeks now. You know, we've been giving him some grace, you know, hey, he's new, let his system work. But I mean, we're, like you said, coming up November. It's not like we're not healthy other than Fortis. Everyone's pretty much healthy. We've got dynamic attacking players, which everyone yelled and screamed, and we just fucking paraded around all over social media with all the signings we've made, and we've got nothing to show for it right now, or not a whole
Yeah.
lot at least. And it's kind of embarrassing, you know?
Yeah. No, it 100% is. And it's just, I brought this up as well. I mean, talk about being a broken record, but I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast, but Sturge brought it up again, I think yesterday or today. And it's like, I said this too. Tareem was sacked for allegedly, he didn't see eye to eye with whoever. And it had come out that he had said, we need like 10 to 15 new players. We need a roster overhaul. And so he was sacked. And then we brought in Alonso. We brought in a new coach, and we completely revamped everything for Alonso, who, he's trying to basically win his career back in Europe because so far it really hasn't gone well for him here or in Europe. And it just kind of boggles my mind a little bit that we took the punt on that when I would have rather just we sacked Yova and we brought in Tareem, which okay, Tareem's got the resume. I would have much rather trusted Tareem in terms of us making all these signings because at least okay, Tareem has a plan. It's worked in the past. He's won so many titles. And again, Alonso's won titles in Mexico, but again, if you watch the Mexican League and you watch MLS, it's completely different to what you see in Greece. It's almost like a culture shock in terms of how you play the game. The Greek game
Well,
is a
that and it took him a full season to get any results over there.
right. Yeah. So and I guess it does go back to our initial point, right? Of like, do we just stick this out and hope that it works out, or do we just kind of hope that somebody comes along? I know Vokolos was like super super popular, but he went to Lamia now, so we don't even realistically have a Greek coach available either. So I'm kind of in a dilemma myself, really thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, you do need somebody familiar with the league or the level of play. We saw that with Jovanovic. We saw that with Tarim. Listen, I mean, we can do hypotheticals all day. At the end of the day, Alonso's here. He's our coach. I don't know or don't think we get some of these signings without his influence, like the Pelistri,
Right.
like Tete. I mean, there's links there with Galatasaray and things like that. But at the end of the day, there's a reason those players came, whether it's Alonso, anybody else, they came for a reason with whoever's there now. So we got to make do with that. But I think it's one of those thanks for bringing in what you got, but it's time to look elsewhere. I wouldn't make the change yet until we know who's available and if it's really worthy of the change, you know. Because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, we don't want to be like the rest of the league of just doing the whole carousel of coaches, you know. We saw
Yeah.
Olympiacos do that and it did cost them in the sense of like dropping down a level in the league compared to last season with the carousel they had. But, you know, with our carousel too, they ended up leapfrogging us. They won the European competition, and the other two teams that are at the top have stuck with their coach for the last 2, 3 years, kind of like what we were building with Jovanovic. So
Yeah.
that's my only fear is just getting stuck in that carousel of coaches coming in and out, and whatever we've built up that Jovanovic built up when he started, everything we've built up for momentum is just gonna crumble down very quickly where we're gonna look like number 5 or 6 in the table
Yeah.
very quickly.
Yeah.
So
100%. Like, I mean, the fact that you brought that up, I mean, my mind instantly went. I think one of the biggest thing Jovanovic did was that he united the whole fan base. I mean, now you see everybody's divided again, and I mean, we're seeing every week. I mean, it's almost a desili. Like, oh, buy one get. I get emails. Buy one ticket, get one free. Like, if you come to the Chelsea game 3 games in a row, they're going to be free or they're going to be €10. And it's like when Jovanovic was the coach. I mean, the games were sold out all the time, and it's like now we're basically having to beg the fans to go. So it's just showing me that people are starting to lose trust and hope which is sad. I mean, on Lafuzos, for example, he spent a lot of money on these players, but it just shows there's no faith in the project itself, which sucks because we've got some good players. Um, I think that's a big thing there. That's kind of really like resurfaced again, and it brings back like pre-Yova days because Yova brought back that like ambition of like, okay, we're competing for titles again. We're competing for first place, and now we're in like fourth or fifth. Yes, it's just with this
I
roster.
think I think some of it came back with a refresh over the summer. I think the sacking of Yova put a big sour taste in a lot of our mouths as fans, and understandably. And then as it went on, it was like, oh, we're great, we're fine. He's keeping the boat steady. And then we saw it dropping and kind of getting uneasy. Then we got the cup, and then it's like, okay. Then the drama happened. Tareem's like, at the end of the season, I'll tell you when I can, what I can. All the drama aside, we started out fresh new summer in Europe. We packed out the Olympic Stadium, but I think just slowly we started to see the cookie crumble when results in the league started to slip, and Europe's been okay. I'm going to be disagree with a lot of the guys in our pod that there's no real great dominant games in Europe, and we've only played a few, and I can agree to an extent, but I don't think Europe's been bad either. I think we should have, played better in a couple matches, but at the end of the day, I think that was the hope. And then when we see how drastically different we go from Europe to the team we see week in and week out in the league is just it's a head scratcher. And I think because that it's dropped again in the fan base, like you said, is just so divided that it's hard to want to support something that you just don't agree with or that you see is wrong, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And you brought up Europe. We've got the game against Chelsea, and this kind of ties in with what we're talking about because I remember when we saw that we got Chelsea, like so many of us and so many Panathinaikos fans on Twitter were like, "Oh yeah, bring Chelsea on!" Like, yeah, we got this. I mean, we saw Chelsea fans terrified, and now it's like now we've just 180. Now it's like, oh man, how much do you think we're gonna get slaughtered by Chelsea on Thursday? I mean, are you feeling positive against Chelsea? Or are you kind of how are you feeling
No,
about it?
dude. I mean, I think the thing was because we were on a high, Chelsea was on a low, and we flipped sides. I think a lot of it for Chelsea was just due to the fact that, the joke of everyone saying, they've got like literally 100 and something players on their roster that they've got to rotate, and they've had coaching changes. They've been kind of like at a really up and down, but I think after they settled in after the first couple weeks, like they've been kind of on a tear. I think they haven't lost in their last, they lost to Liverpool over the weekend, but before that, they hadn't lost in their last since September 1st, August 29th in the Conference League qualification. They beat that Swiss team. They lost 2, won that game, but I think they beat him on aggregate. Other than that, they've been all summer long, they've been good. And at the end of the day, they're still I think they're in fifth or sixth now, but at the end of the day, they're still a Premier League team playing at the highest level in one of the highest leagues. And we're talking about like a top five, top six on a bad day team in the Premier League.
Yeah.
We're not at that level, nowhere near. Nobody in the Greek league is touching that level. Um, so I think at the moment or time, we beat Botev and um Lens. That matchup was pretty nuts, but I think because of that, we were on a high and thinking we're invincible, but reality slowly has settled in, especially seeing how down of a trend we've been on that, you know, I'm not, I think Chelsea will still rotate heavily. I don't know if they'll play their stars like they do week in, week out, like they do for league, but I still think that we're complete underdogs in that, no matter where we play. Um, I just don't see it. And that's not to be a Debbie Downer on us. I think they're going to be our most difficult opponent in that competition at the end of the day. So I'd be happy to just kind of get that game out of the way now rather than it become like a win or go home later on, depending how the other results go. If we get a
Yeah.
result out of it, great. If we don't, we've still got lots of more winnable games to determine that. But given that that's our next opponent and what form we're in, I'm just not confident whatsoever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough one, man, because I mean, obviously, I mean, they're the favorite in terms of like who they are. Their Premier League team, right? Their squad is insane, even if they do rotate. I still have this weird feeling just because this is Panathinaikos, and like somehow, even with this Alonso team, like the games that you expect to lose, he somehow pulls out a win, or we somehow pull out some type of result. So I think this is gonna go one of two ways. I think we're either gonna get like obliterated, or we're gonna somehow pull off like a 1-0 like random win or something. And I'm thinking the club is really like banking on the atmosphere. Because I just keep going back to what the Chelsea fans were saying of like, oh man, dude, like the players are gonna shit themselves when they see like how crazy the atmosphere is in Athens. So I think the club again, they're doing these ticket things because they want to sell out the crowd, make it a 60,000 seat game again, like against Lens. Um, I don't know. In terms of play style, I mean, again, we've seen the style doesn't work. We're I don't think we're gonna like play them off the park or anything, but maybe just defend like we did against PAOK, and maybe try to steal a 1-0 off of like a Tete lucky goal or a Pelistri goal. Like that's kind of where I'm thinking, but it's not gonna be anything like, off the charts insane. Maybe if we had like a Yova or something to where like you never know, he always punches above his weight. Okay, like we saw with England and we saw when he was at Apoel, and even with us. But yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those weird. I can imagine it being one of those weird Panathinaikos games where somehow we just pull it off and then we like go on to lose to like Panionios or something.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I can definitely agree to that. I mean, we all thought that going up against Lens in the second um matchup or in that game. I mean, they were on a tear. They're on high momentum, like they were one of the better teams in France. Make that what you will of that league. So, I mean, given that this sport, any team can win on any given day, realistically. It's not like kind of basketball or other games, other sports where like, if you're going in a best of seven series type of deal. But I mean, we can definitely flip the game on its head. Of course, I would be much more confident if we had somebody like Jovanovic or even Tarim at the helm compared to Alonso, but um I can see us pulling something. It's just my confidence isn't there. I wouldn't be shocked if we did, and I'd be on a high, but at the end of the day, my expectation is, you know, I see them beating us 3-4 nil. Maybe we'll get one by, but
Yeah,
our top scorer Fotis is out injured too. So it's like,
yeah,
I don't know. The FC's a mess, dude.
yeah,
In any way you look at it, unfortunately. And it's sad just because of what we've built up, but that's what we've got in front of us, and we just got to rally behind the team and still support them and hope that they can turn this thing around. If not, the coach, the players, for the fans, for George, just for the sake of just saving their season before they get too stuck too far down in a hole.
yeah, dude, 100%. I think really as supporters, that's all we can do. There's a lot on the line. I mean, the club has spent the most money it has spent in the Alafusos era. I mean, first time since 2009 that we've seen a squad like this. So it would be a shame, if it just kind of just all imploded and things got really, really bad in terms of like, what we spent, the players that we have, the quality that we have. Because I mean, I love like I'm not even lying. I'm thinking about getting a Tete jersey. I mean, this guy is fantastic. Like it's just fun to watch this guy. We've got Pelistri. We've got so many good players, so many fun players to watch, and it would be a shame to just watch it kind of crumble down. And like to your point, the FC's just been a disaster. I mean, the last 10 years. But finally, when hope was kind of coming up, and even I was hopeful again in the summer, I'm starting to quiver a little bit at like, oh man, if we get really blown out off the park against Chelsea on Thursday, I'm just scared that it will just have like a ripple effect and we just go down from there.
Well, yeah, and the other thing is in years past we've always just begged and begged and begged for signings and we never got them really. Maybe one good one and then the rest were just random last minute and we're just like, man, look what Jovanovic did with such little or Terim. Imagine had they gotten signings and it's like now we got all excited all summer long. We got the Tete, Pelistri, Philip Max, we've got the center back. We've had Maximovic. Like we've had,
Yep.
Terim did say 10 to 15 players, and we were kind of scoffed and laughed at it. But over summer, we kind of went through a roster and went, I could pick out probably 10 to 12 players. And from Bacacetas coming into this past window, we're probably close to what, 7 or 8 guys. So he wasn't that far off. But the point is now we've got these signings and we're still not doing anything with it. And the biggest thing is that I'm worried about is Fortes has been a hot topic. We don't know how long he's going to stay around. If he keeps producing, which we think he will, it's only a matter of time before that transfer fee is going to come that we agree to, he agrees to. The deals we've done have been great, but I think Pelistri's deal isn't like in our favor more so. I don't even think Unahi is either. I think Tete is the only one that's like a solid 2.5 year, 3 year contract. The point is that this might be like the one and only make or break season if we do anything, because we might not see half of these signings or attackers next season other than Tete unless he wants out because he's revamped his name.
Yeah.
Um, that's my other biggest worry is you don't do anything with this season. All those other guys, they end up leaving. Manchester United pulls him back. Foti gets sold. Well, now he goes back because I think his is a loan deal. Bacacetas is only getting older. That's four of your main guys, which
Yeah.
is it's worrying. But we just got to take it one week, one game at a time. Alfie was uninspiring, but we got the result at the end of the day. The points is all that matters. We've got Chelsea coming up. Let's just hope that this kind of pattern continues is all I have to close that part out. Unless you have anything else to add.
No, no, that's pretty much all I've got to for FC. I think it's just as fans we can hope that it goes in a positive trajectory because, like, of course, we could think about all the negatives that could happen, but there's also the positive hope that we have. So, I think me and you are optimists, so we can kind of hope that something good's gonna happen instead of like, sitting on the negative. So,
Yeah.
um, we'll see what happens there. Thursday is gonna be a big game. I'm gonna try to catch that. So I think we've pretty much wrapped up the FC. Now we're kind of going from one area to another now with the basketball. The basketball, traditionally has been a more positive vibe, a more well-run organization, especially last season. But we kind of started off a little bit rough here in Euroleague. Last week was one of the double weeks. So for those of you that are listening and you guys weren't able to watch, Panathinaikos played Paris, who is a newly promoted side. They're from the Champions Cup. They're the Champions Cup champions, actually. And they came up and we played them in France, and it was a pretty, it was a dogfight, man. It was a dogfight. Panathinaikos ended up losing to Paris. It was from the get go. I think we fell into Paris's hands. We fell into their gameplay where they were really pushing the tempo. I don't know if you got a chance to catch it, Alki, but they were like, anytime we'd lose the ball, instantly hoof it up the court. They had a runner there for a cherry pick, or right off an inbound, they'd instantly rush it down on the other side of the court. And I mean, it threw us completely off our game. I think we like to play more of a slower type game. We dictated a little bit, but I mean, it was pretty rough. I mean, they really punched us in the mouth. What were your thoughts about that loss against Paris?
Listen, it's kind of twofold here because it's similar to last season. A lot of the same issues are coming up. when we fall into the other team's game plan, we can match them talent for talent, or we can rely on talent to just keep us in it. But these games reminding me of like the first round matchup against Maccabi. They ran us out of the gym and just dominated in every aspect. And we kind of just always hung on just based on pure talent. None, I didn't think he had a good first round. Slukas was amazing. Lesor couldn't hit his free throws, but was keeping us. So it was kind of like more on will from those two guys. And then it slowly reeled it in. As far as, defense wins championship. That's our game plan usually. Defense leads to offense. If we're not playing good defensively, like you said, half court. Um, I think more eyes are on us just simply because obviously we're reigning champs. But on the flip side, I could also see Paris newly promoted. They've kind of got nothing to lose and a lot to gain, so they're going to come out running, wanting to win as many games they can to just stay up. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, their first game is against the reigning champs. They want to come out with a statement, punch us in the mouth, and that's exactly what they did. Am I worried? No. I think there's just been a lot of drama around the team going into Final Four last year, the whole Greek Cup, the summer, um, signings we made, who's going to stay, who's going to go. Guys have overtaken other guys in the rotation, like Juancho over Mitoglu. We've seen that be a complete flip flop. Slukas coming back from injury. We've got Brown coming in. There's just a lot of factors into it, and I think it's going to be another slow start to the season before you see it get turned around. I think people are more worried just because of how good we were last season and we're reigning champs. I could be a little hypocritical because I thought the same thing last season with brand new team. Everyone picked us as the favorite. I didn't see it. I'd say we'd be lucky. I was proven wrong, but I think it's still going to take maybe 2 or 3 more games before we see them settle in. I don't think we can afford to lose 2 or 3 more games. I just think we might win 2 or 3 more games, but you're going to see them be kind of rough wins before you see just them fall in the rhythm, just rotation guys falling into their play. Like Juancho has been unreal since Final Four. And to see him just completely overtake the job of what Mitoglu offered and him kind of fall off is worrying. Slukas is only getting older. Eventually people are gonna hone in on Nunn's game. If he's taken out, we've seen how much of an impact that has on, down the stretch in crucial moments. So there's just a lot of adaptability that has to go on, even though it's relatively the same team. At the same time, it's not just because a few guys have changed roles and we've added a few guys that have like Brown. I don't know what everyone's expectation was. I just didn't think he would come in and be the same Brown he was for Maccabi because he
Yeah.
doesn't need as big of a role for us.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That I'm glad you brought up that Brown point because that's what I was going to bring up too. Because I've had, I've just been thinking about it. We added three, relatively big pieces. I mean, we added Osman, who you could tell is still trying to figure it out.
Yep.
Lorenzo Brown got brought in. Lorenzo Brown was arguably the star player along with Bonzi Colson, I think, on Maccabi. So
Yep.
he went from being the guy to now being like, he's coming off the bench for Slukas. So, and vice versa. They'll switch it up, but he's got a more minimized role now because basically this is Nunn's team, Nunn and Slukas. And we've seen, like you said, Juancho. I mean, Juancho's like transformed his contract year, so he's really playing for that contract. And you've seen him step up. So everybody's kind of trying to figure themselves out a little bit. Everybody's kind of like trying to see where they fit in, adjust. Because again, a guy like Lorenzo went from being the star to now you're playing staggered minutes. You're sharing the ball with Jarian, or you're sharing the ball with Kendrick. We've seen different rotations, but it's not what it once was before for him. And then again, Osman is trying not to step on toes. He seems like he's a positive guy. He's still trying to get himself settled in. You could tell like some of the defensive sets. Yurtseven, I think, has been the one guy. I know he didn't really have a good game against Madrid, but I think he's been the one guy that's come in and like instantly kind of just gotten his role together. He's a much better upgrade compared to Balsarowski.
Yep.
I just think, overall it's gonna take us, like you said, it's gonna take us a few games to get ourselves settled in. The one positive that I have is that we tend to play a lot better at home, and I think we have like a 4 or 5 game stretch though where we're gonna play some tough teams. It's gonna be up to us on those home games to really rack up some of those wins. I don't know if you saw Atamans' comments today, but I think people are blowing it up like on Twitter, and I saw in the comments on Instagram where
What's new?
yeah, like rival fans, even Panathinaikos fans, and he was saying that I can't make a guarantee or a promise this year that we're gonna go to the Final Four. You need to ask the team that. You need to ask Lucas that. So the way that I took it as is, Adamin is like a mental mind games type of coach. So I think he's trying to tell the players, hey, get your heads out of your asses because you guys aren't playing the way you're supposed to. And I think he's flipped it now onto them to where he holds them accountable. Like, I mean, I don't know if you saw it, he called out Lorenzo Brown. I think it was the Real Madrid game where he was like, well, they go on an 11-0 run. You can blame Lorenzo for that. Or he said something like that. So he's not afraid. I was watching a podcast. He's not afraid. Whoever you are, he's gonna tell you
Well,
off.
he did that last season with Juancho too. And
Yeah,
Juancho saw a dip in minutes, benched, and then whenever he got opportunity, he made the most of it. I mean, listen, Ataman has that resume. I wasn't ever convinced of him. Last year was amazing. I even said I was completely wrong. I took responsibility. I think he knows what he's doing, but I think like you said, playing mind games. But at the end of the day, I think he's like, I'm not going to give any promises because I know what I want to coach. I proved it last year. What the guys are doing out there isn't what I teach them. It's
yeah,
up to them. I can only tell you, yeah, we're gonna do it, but I don't have confidence in them right now because they're not playing like we're supposed to be playing. And that's just him being very transparent too. I think it's a little bit of, yeah, playing mind games and trying to motivate his guys, but at the end of the day, I think it's also him being just completely transparent in the sense of like, that's not the team I know. That's not the team I coach. I coach a team that won the Final Four, won the whole thing last year, came down back from Olympiacos and all that drama and those mind games with Barzokas and all that. Like that's the team, that's the type of team I coach. So um Paris game and the Real Madrid game, I mean, we went down big against them.
yeah,
Came back a little bit but still lost. So
yeah,
I wasn't expecting a win against them. Honestly, I think they're a great regular season team. Um, but just like them in Barcelona, I think when it comes down to it, playoffs and Final Fours, when you'll really see who's gonna shine. So, I can understand as fans being upset, not happy with the results and the way they've gone. Understandable. We're reigning champs. We should not be losing games. There wasn't any drastic enough change that are at our disadvantage for us to be losing. Um, but I think we just need to be mindful that we're somewhat not as serious as last season where it was a complete overhaul, but like we just mentioned, there's still a big shuffle and rotation of players. Maybe not as many new players this season, but there's still shuffling of, like we said, roles and
yeah,
which guys got promoted in a sense and which guys have gotten demoted. Um,
yeah,
and
yeah.
we
I
just got to
mean,
be patient with it. We just can't obviously lose it too much in the league where it becomes out of hand either. But we also saw last season, you can make up big gaps and leapfrogs throughout the table in a
yeah.
span of a couple games. So
Yeah, I think like you brought it up when we first started talking about basketball. I think there's a big magnifying glass on us because we are the reigning champions. So any drop, any dip in form, any loss, that's going to be, I think, blown out of proportion because we are the favorites, us and Olympiacos. But it's one of those things to where, if you remember back to last season, I mean, we started off kind of rough. Like it wasn't until January where we picked it up. And I remember Sluka started off real slow. It wasn't until like, mid to late January where like once he got it going, people give none credit and, all to him. But I feel like Slukas, once he got himself going, like that unlocked none. So we've got none, or we've got Slukas kind of slacking right now. Mitoglu completely fell off a cliff. Osman's still trying to get himself settled. Nunn's been okay. He's been doing his thing. He's been kind of scoring, but even then, sometimes he's been shut out a little bit. So we've got all these different factors kind of going against us. And I think once we start to see things going a little more positive, like we start to see Lucas playing like himself, even Jerry and Grant, like, I mean, kind of defensively, like I saw him struggling a little bit against Paris. Like once we see him pick up as well, and we see Lorenzo Brown get more settled in his like secondary role, I mean, I can only see it starting to pick up for us. So I think Adaman is saying that because it's true. We're not playing as we should, and I think it's part of those mind games. But I also think that like fans and these basketball pages on Instagram and Twitter and all that, I think they're just overly blowing it out of proportion because we are the reigning champions. So we need to like the expectation is that we need to play perfect, even though our starting five we've got like three new guys technically cracking in the rotation and playing heavier minutes than they did last year. So it is
Well, there's
technically,
that. There's yeah, like you said, there's a lot of this season's gonna be more of how is Ataman gonna manage the egos. And I don't
yeah,
see egos in a bad way. You just have a lot of
yes,
main guys, like we said. If you look at our roster positions 1 through 4, I think our backups for positions 1 through 4 are probably starters on a lot of teams in the rest of the league.
yes,
Like our backcourt is a backcourt. Our guys coming off the bench are guaranteed starter heavy minutes. The guys on most teams across the league,
yeah,
1 and 2 are three. Osman, Papa Petru. Look at 4. Mitoglu, Juancho, those kind of in between guys that can play the 3 or 4. Those are guys that were you bench players last year, where this year they're starters or vice versa. And they're starters on a lot of teams throughout the league elsewhere. So there's a lot of adaptation that's going to need to happen. And that's why I'm saying egos of I was the guy last season or one of the guys in this season. I'm a role guy. I got to be a glue guy. I got to figure out how I'm going to fit into this system.
yeah,
And that's going to be the thing I think this year because I'm not worried about the play. I'm not worried about the stats, the scoring, the numbers. Like all that's there. It's just how it's all going to come together. And we're going to have to see if, Ataman is the guy that's going to be able to manage all that.
yep, yeah. That's exactly what it's going to be, and it's just kind of like accepting those roles. I mean, I felt a little bit better, like hearing like Lorenzo Brown over the summer in those preseason talks, like just saying like, hey, I came here, and he understands, hey, my role is going to be a little bit different here in Maccabi, and so I want to learn from Slukas, a guy that's won before. I've played however many years here in EuroLeague, and I want to win a title. So he, it to me it shows that hey, for me to win, I've got to sacrifice a little bit. And I mean, we saw it in the game against Ike. I mean, Lorenzo really stepped up and he did really good. I think it was yesterday or Saturday. And we saw the team bounce back. Ike again, they're a Champions Cup team. They're not like a EuroLeague level team, but we won big. It's good for our confidence there.
Yeah.
And again, with the talent that we have, I'm also not concerned because, like you said, we have a Osman can still be in the NBA. Yurtseven just came from the NBA. None came from the NBA. Like we have some NBA players on the roster, and we've got guys like Jerry and Grant who could have arguably been Defensive Player of the Year.
Should
Juancho,
have been. Should have
yeah,
been. There's no argument there. Nobody can tell me that, Walkup deserved it, but whatever. But like you said, Brown is 32, 33. He's not a guy coming here to learn from Slukas in a sense of like he knows how to play the game.
right,
There's nothing he needs to improve on other than just fitting on the team. He knows how to shoot. He knows how to distribute. He can play like he's here to learn leadership, how to fit in, how
yeah,
to be that guy in case Slukas isn't there. Just like how Nunn had to take over games when they had to trade off. And we saw that in the Final Four and playoffs last year of Nunn when he had bad games, Slukas came in and stepped up. But for most of the season, Slukas never really tried to be that guy on the court. We saw him be that guy on the sidelines and in the locker room.
yeah,
But he let guys like Nunn take over when he knew they were, or whoever was on Papa Petru or he's feeding the beast and trying to be the leader because he's not young either. So it's like all these guys came here for a reason to learn how to play
yeah,
the right way in a system and not necessarily to just better their career.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, there's a common goal for this whole team here, and that's to go back to back. We saw
Yep.
with all saying, let's go for 8 when he signed. So, that's fantastic. We have a test, man. We're gonna play Fenerbahce on Friday.
Yep.
Fener's one of those teams where you don't really know what you're gonna get. I mean, I think they beat Olympiacos a couple match days ago, so we're going in there. I think we're playing them. I have it right here. I think at we're playing them at their home, so we're playing them in Turkey. So that's going to be tough, man. I mean, we've seen that they are beatable. They had lost a game. They know that we're coming off 2 bad back-to-back losses against Paris, and then we lost against Madrid. So, we also defeated them in the Final Four. So we're going to want to get, or they're going to want to get that revenge. And then we're going to obviously want to get a big win. I think if we can get something there, I think it should boost spirits a little bit, because it's tough to win in Fenner. So, I think we'll get a better glimpse into what the roles are, how people are going to respond, our defensive schemes a little bit, and just don't fall into the traps of Fenner. So I like I like Ataman over Yasevekius. I think Yasevekius is a good coach, but he's more of like I feel like a motivator and not really a tactician. Whereas I think Ataman's kind of a mix of both. So that'll be good, man. That'll be good. Did you want to add anything onto our Fenner game coming up?
No, just looking forward to it. I have all the faith in the boys. I think we'll see a good game. But yeah, no, just I think we've kind of covered it all. Just we got to be more patient with them than we are with the FC, I think, at this point.
Yeah, yeah. They definitely deserve it. I think basketball has proven that they deserve our patience. So awesome. That's pretty much all we've got here for our episode. We covered our FC, our football club. We've covered our basketball club. Lots of big games coming this week for both sides. If you guys aren't already, please follow us on Instagram at BallFans International. We're also on Twitter, known as X now. And I believe we're also on Facebook. And we even have a YouTube channel where you can actually see us talking here. So feel free to follow us on there, you guys. Thank you for your support. Next episode, hopefully, will be positive, and it will be with our Australian crew. Alki, thanks for stopping by with us for this episode.
Awesome, Antoni. Thanks for the talk.